So, good morning to everybody. To this third European seminar in the Safe Zone project. The title is Preventing Youth Radicalization in Sport, Lesson Learned from Covid-19 Pandemic. Unfortunately, we expected probably to be out of the pandemic, but apparently we are still in the middle of the pandemic. So still troubled by the pandemic. So it's much more actual than probably we expected when we planned this meeting. And so welcome, as I said, to everybody. We will start with a brief presentation of the Safe Zone project made by Alessia Mefalopoulos, and then we'll get into the topic of the day with the keynote speech of Paulo Rocha from the Portuguese Mission Sport Working Group expert from Portugal on youth radicalization in time of pandemic. So I think it's better to pass the floor directly to Alessia Mefalopoulos and to hear something about where we are with Safe Zone and which will be the next steps for the project. Alessia.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. We will share this PowerPoint, the slides. Okay. Safe Zone is a project. Is a project funded by the DG Migration and Home Affairs of the European Commission, Internal Security Fund Police. This is a program. It started in January 2020, and it should conclude in December this year, but it will probably conclude 3 months later in March, in the end of March. It involves in its partnership 7 partners from 4 European countries, that is CJD from Germany, IPRS as a coordinator, and CSI from Italy, and from Portugal, the Catholic University of Porto and IPDJ, and from Slovenia, 2 more partners, Alma Mater Europa University and the MMIA from Maribor. This project is focused on radicalization and prevention of radicalization and extreme violence, particularly among the young and very young people, that is teenagers. This is a topic which is raising much concern at the European level, as well as at national levels, in particular in some countries, in Northern European countries, more than in others at the moment. The European Commission calls for a preventive actions that goes through a coordinated effort, which means involving all key actors, both at local and national levels, in who are working in youth education. And Safe Zone is focused on sport, which means that it will it is involving all key actors at local level who have some role in both young education and sports, and as well as radicalization, which means justice. Sports, why did we decide to focus on sports? Because sports can guarantee the well-balanced psychosocial development of children and young people. Because through sports we can affirm an informal educational relationship, which can be very effective, and because it has the potential to involve many key actors, especially at local levels. For instance, schools, other educational and leisure agencies. Yes, and police and so on. We adopted the concept of radicalization adopted by the European Commission. Radicalization seen as a phased and complex process in which an individual or a group embraces a radical ideology or belief that accepts, uses, or condones violence, including acts of terrorism, to reach a specific political or ideological purpose. This means that we decided not to focus on a specific type of radicalization. We can address many types of radicalization, which is radicalization on a religious base or on a extreme political base, or on a racist base, many different types of radicalization, and we choose to work on all of them. Yes, please, next. So, okay, we said already, sports is an area of informal education, and for this reason, it may be considered as particularly effective in dealing with young people. Of course, it increases life skills, it helps build resilience amongst adolescents. It is an opportunity to reach out to a broad population of young people, but also to their families and also to the community surrounding them, and this is very important. It is based on educational relationship which involves social inclusion, and for this reason it can play a key role in identifying the risk of radicalization. And the last point is extremely important, as it deals with sports. Many sports, most sports, deal with groups, and groups have the potential to provide protective factors against radicalization. But we will see later. But also radicalized groups provide protective factors to the people they try to attract. So this is a key point. Okay, we can go to the next one. We carried out in all 4 countries, we carried out a training with sports coaches and educators. We completed this training. The results of this training will go on an e-learning platform, which will be available online and open to everybody in 5 languages. And we did this because sport coaches and educators not always are aware of their having a key role in the education of young and very young people. Therefore, we addressed them particularly in order to strengthen their skills, to be able to observe and potentially to observe any sign of risk, let's say, of radicalization risk. So they are in a key position to observe, and they can potentially influence children's development, and they have, for this reason, a very important key role. The focus of our training was on the educational and pedagogical role, and they are in a key position also because they can bridge between young people and the other agencies. So they can be regarded as sentinels of an alert system. Yes, okay, We worked to strengthen their potential. They can be a positive influence. They do influence young people, so it's a matter of addressing, directing, let's say, such influence, which can be positive or negative. They have a key role also because they can become role models especially for children and teenagers. So they should become positive role models. They have relationships which can be powerful forces in protecting adolescents from radicalization. And also, last but not least, studies demonstrate that by strengthening this relationship, the educational relationship between the coach and the athlete, the results will be better also in the athletic performance. Okay, so we are engaging coaches as prevention agents. We are developing an e-learning toolkit, as I said before. Our main aim is, at the end of the project, to have contributed to establishing an early warning monitoring and reporting system. Our main, let's say, tool is awareness raising, and we intend also by all these activities to promote national and European policy development. When we speak of awareness in the framework of radicalization, we at Safe Zone, we are addressing four main areas, four main levels. So the first one is with sport coaches and educators, as they are the ones directly in contact with the young people. But then we are also carrying out meetings with sports managers and key staff who have a decision role, in order to make them also aware of the radicalization risk, and also so that sport coaches and educators who have been trained can report to them any potential risks. And the other level is out of the sports organizations, which is with local stakeholders and key actors. We are also carrying out meetings, multi-agency meetings with schools, families, churches, youth agencies, police, and any other key actors. And at the end of this process, we aim to contribute to influence local and involve and influence local and national policymakers. And we have the development of EU guidelines as a final output as well. Okay, so this is a summary of the alert system. The awareness raising goes through these three areas: sport coaches, sport managers, multi-agency cooperation. As a result, we have the alert system. Yes, next. So multi-agency cooperation is key. It should aim at strengthening or creating a network where between actors, where information can be shared, and it promotes cooperation between key actors, the development and implementation of common prevention strategies at local level, and the inclusion of coaches and youth workers in youth sports within a broader network. Yes. The main outputs of Safe Zone: e-learning platform and training toolkit, prevention through sports booklet addressing sport coaches and youth educators, and, as I said, EU guidelines. Yes, go to next one. Okay, this is our final slide. It's just an introduction to the specific topic of this seminar, the third seminar. We want to link this to COVID, to the pandemic. We are still in the pandemic, and we know that the sports sector has been particularly affected by the pandemic. So on one hand, we have young and very young people who are amongst the most affected sectors of the population. And on the other side, we have one of the sports sector, which is also one of the most affected social sectors in terms also of economic impact. The focus of this seminar will be on the changes brought about by the pandemic, how the work of sport coaches and educators change and is changing in sport practice with adolescents and young people, and how does or is such change affecting the educational relationship with their young athletes. Okay.
Thank you all very much, Alessia.
Thank
Such introduction, presentation of the project, and to have focused better on the topic of the day. As we said, sport has for sure an educational meaning, and as you already pointed out, this educational meaning can be used in order to prevent from a radicalization, but as well, of course, in order to radicalize people, as we know. So extremely interesting to see how we can make sure that the educational impact is able to prevent any kind of radicalization, especially in the use of violence in adolescence, especially in adolescence, in which the risk of impulsive and violent behavior is quite high. And for sure, it's true that sport was so much affected by the pandemic, so kind of in-group life. So it would be, I think, extremely interesting to see how the sport has reacted in a way to such a pandemic. So I think it's now the time to pass the floor to Paulo Rocha. Is Paulo Rocha there? Yeah, is Paulo Rocha there? So thank you very much. We will be listening to your keynote speech. Already introduced you, head of sport for all division. I don't know the IPDJ PPU, what is the meaning of this acronym. You will for sure make it clear for us. And this Portuguese Mission Sport Working Group expert. Thank you so much to join us, to stay with us.
So hello, good morning to everybody. I'm at the moment at the university, but this acronym, like we're saying, it's the acronym of the Portuguese Institute of Sport and Youth. Okay. So I am working on this governmental body in Portugal that is responsible for the application of the politics in sport and youth in Portugal. Mainly, we are worried, as you can imagine, with the promotion of physical activity in sports in all segments of the population. And of course, this area of radicalization and inclusion and fight against any sort of discrimination, it's also very, very important for us. I would like, in following the previous participation in the last seminar, I would like to update you with some data that we have collected in Portugal and among several partners at European level regarding the influence of the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic of COVID-19 in physical activity and sport. And I would like also to stress and to say that at the European Union, we are making an effort also in an institutional way in order to identify what could be the next steps in terms of recovery and resilience of this sector, of our sports sector. I would not take too much time, but I would like to refer 3 or 4 areas before entering on some of the data that I would like to present you. And these are directly related with the role that each one of us in our organizations will have in the next 5 years, basically from 2021 until 2026. And the first role that we understood, and last week I was in Brussels for the MOVE Congress that was developed by ISCA, and we come to the conclusion that we knew it already, but our sector is very, very weak. Our organizations are very frail, not only in terms of human resources, but also in terms of financial support and structural support and so on. So what we need to do, and at least these organizations that have more responsibility in leading others inside of this sector, are in fact starting a very huge campaign of capacity building. We need again to give capacity to the people that are working on the local sport issue in order to develop more and more impactful programs in terms of their influence on society. In addition, we need also to identify what are the best funding opportunities in order to maintain or to attract talent to our organizations. We need people minded, focus-minded in developing full impact projects in this social area in order to give the reply that society are waiting from our side in terms of the sport. And I would like you to show you 3 or 4 main ideas with the data that we have collected. And in addition, in the end, I would like also to share with you 2 or 3 ideas also related with this particular area of radicalization and what can sport do in this specific time. So I will share, if you don't mind, I will share my screen with you. Let me see if I can do it, and probably you will see it in a minute. I think that now you can already see it, I think, but I will try again. Let me try with this. So I think that you are seeing already the slides.
Yes, we see them. Okay.
So just very briefly, not to bother you too much with data, we understand that now all over Europe, people increased their time in their sedentary perspective. This weekend we had obesity congress in Portugal with the Portuguese Society for the Study of Obesity. And unfortunately, we have identified that in Portugal and maybe in other countries, 80% of the older population are obese or are overweight. 60% of adults are obese and overweight. And in children and youngsters, 30%, which means 1 in each 3 kids are obese and overweight. This is mainly because people and kids don't do physical activity enough anymore. And I want to show you basically the most relevant impacts that you can see in this area. During this pandemic, we have made a group of, let's say, a data collection, and we understood, as you can see here, that cardiovascular mortality and cancer and obesity are directly connected with the time spent in sedentary behavior, and mainly in the time spending in screen objects, TV, computer, phone, whatever. But if you wanna be a little bit more clear, we know now that the difference between these elevation of risk are mostly related in an inverse way with the amount and the intensity of physical activity, meaning that if you increase the volume and you increase the intensity, you have an inverse relation with the bad markers of health, and including the bad markers of mental health, which are on the table, as you know at the moment. So I'm going to just share with you very few data, but we made this in two moments. The first moment of the pandemic in 2020, and again we repeated in the second moment of 2021. And what we have identified is that, along with other 10 countries at European level, including Russia at this moment, we have identified that only 20% of the children made it the recommendations of physical activity provided by the WHO. This means that most of the kids, most of the children were not sufficiently active during this period, during this long period of the pandemic. However, on the other way around, we have also identified that the time spent on more than 2 hours per day in time spent on screen were highly prevalent. This means that we had a combination of time spent on sedentary behavior and, in addition, less time spent on physical activity. And we also identified that there were three specific determinants, or three specific correlates that were previewing a better outlook in terms of healthy lifestyle. And what identifies that the kids that had opportunity to play outdoor more than 2 hours per day, that had a concrete routine organizing their day, and have the opportunity of being active online with the physical education classes, were the ones that were, let's say, more protected from these detrimental effects of the pandemic. And these were basically viewed when we asked for the children, and I'm going to show you this data, if they do it, any kind of physical education online. And as you can see, on the first moments of the pandemic, teachers all over Europe have difficulty in creating moments and adjusting the offer of physical education online in order to give reply to the needs of the kids and youngsters. However, when you ask if they do any additional physical activity after the physical education and after school, you identify that most of the kids were doing more than 2-3 days per week, which was a really nice surprise, and meaning that at least they were compensating with some activity after the school. And if you want to additionally take a look on the data related with these 60 minutes during the last 7 days, at least 60 minutes per day of physical activity, you see that most of the people were doing at least until 2-3 days. So people were not active all over the week, most of the times. And on the other way around, when we asked in the last 7 days, how much time did they spend per day in watching TV, as you can see, most of the prevalence is here identifying with more than 2 hours. So only from all the sample, only less than 300 kids were making less than 2 hours per day on activities involving screen. Most of the kids were more than 2 hours per day. When we asked about the type of activities that were more chosen during this time of the pandemic, in the first semester, the first moment of the pandemic, as you can see, bicycle, running, walking were the most prevalent in terms of times. As you can see here, blue, 5 to 6 times, and in dark blue, more than 7 times. So as you can see, these kind of activities were the ones that were mostly recognized by the youngsters as the ones that they would like to do or they had opportunity to do. As you can see, this kind of sports and other kind of activities, most are dark orange, which mean that they didn't do any kind of physical activity using these activities during this during the week. But in a resumed perspective, when taking into the consideration the activity that was done before the pandemic and during the pandemic, as you can see, all the markers identified with sedentary behavior, watching TV, social media, other type of sedentary increased their prevalence. The interruptions in sedentary behavior were decreased, and the time spent on physical activity with moderate and vigorous physical activity was reduced in 20%. And the activities, as I referred previously, that were mostly developed by the youngsters were in fact walking and bicycling. So with this kind of information, we also asked what were the differences between the first moment of the pandemic and the second moment of the pandemic in 2021. And what you can see here is what we asked about in this area, the sedentary time on the left. Here you can see the time spent in front of screens, TV, phone, tablet, and so on during the weekdays, and here down during the weekend, fim de semana, weekends. As you can see, superior, equal, or inferior. And when compared with the first moment of pandemic, the second moment of pandemic, so this year, we are talking about the first semester of 2021, youngsters reported that they increased mostly of the youngsters reported that they increase their time in sedentary behavior taking in front of the screens. And this is comparable with what we saw in other countries inside of this study. So overall, we have identified in Europe a second moment of the pandemic, which was even more serious in terms of time spent in sedentary behavior. And this has a direct connection with mental health issues and with normal, let's say, physical health issues. On the other way around, as you can see, on the other side, in terms of physical active, when we asked them if they were more physically active than compared with 2020, we identified that most of the people, as you can see, or a big part of the people, blue, orange, and green, were or equal or less active. So the pandemic did not increase over time the trend for kids and youngsters to make more physical activity to compensate the time that they were active. This is particularly relevant because I would like to stress the work that was done inside the pandemic or during the pandemic, and I would like to bring you this example from Khalida Popal. This young lady, she's an Afghanistan refugee. She now lives in Denmark, and she was a player during her time during her time of childhood, she was a player in national football team in Afghanistan. As you know, in Afghanistan, following this crisis and these political changes in Afghanistan, several people had the opportunity to live in these air bridges that were created by several countries: Italians, Portuguese, Americans, Denmark, Germany, so on, and French, and so on and so on. And we all seen inclusively unexpected and outstanding situations of people falling from the planes that they were trying to leave. This girl, this Khalida Popal, was responsible for was one of the national team's football players and had to leave Afghanistan during this air bridge. Because the Taliban, as you know, prohibit sport in Afghanistan because of their ideology, and they are trying to get and to persecute all the girls that stayed in Afghanistan that were former players, and some of them were already killed and executed. So this lady, Khalida Popal, had opportunity to leave from Denmark, and from Denmark organized the possibility of several of their girls that were playing in the national soccer team to leave the country. However, all of those girls, very, very young, had to make a decision, left and leaving their family behind, because only them could get the plane. So still, the last week, some of the girls that are still in Afghanistan were still flying from Afghanistan to Denmark in order to leave the country, organized by this organization, girlpower.org, that she is running. And this is a specific example of how sport can, in fact, work and counteract this radicalization and this situation that we see all over Europe. So I would like to just to share with you this story. If you have opportunity, please take a look on the website and take a look on the work that they are doing. But finally, to finish my talk, is to identify three main things in a briefly resume of what we need to develop based on the lessons learned, if we can learn some lessons from all of this situation. First of all, we need to empower again and give capacity to the local social tissue that are responsible for working these interventions on the local basis, because they are very, very weak, and we need again to give them capacity to develop social impacted programs. Secondly, there is a huge opportunity now based on what is happening related with the pandemic, that we are on the bottom line of physical activity and on the highest level ever of sedentary behavior. So all the projects in the upcoming time need to also address the opportunities for people to engage in physical activity, in something that they like to do, that they have pleasure to do, and that they have possibility to transmit the what we call at least the social model values of Europe, that are in fact different from most of the parts of the world, and we have to be proud of this social European model that we are still having in place, although several sectors of society are trying to attack this social model. And in the end, I would like to share with you these stories. Probably in your countries, you know other stories. Probably you have also other stories, and it's time now to get these stories out on the society, to increase the dissemination and to engage again our society along in these teams, because it's urgent that sport can make a movement in terms of preventing any kind of segregation and supporting this kind of people that are living now their worst moments of their life. So this is what I would like to share with you, and I'm totally available to in the future, if you think that this could be also possible, to create opportunities and see if we can cooperate in developing at European level projects that are meaningful and can make the difference in an institutional but also in a local perspective. So this is mainly with the time what I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, so much for your very interesting presentation. And we have a few minutes before the coffee break, and then the round table will follow. So I think we can, we have time and space for a few questions. And I would like to start with the first question. But if anyone has a question to ask, please give a sign right in the chat, or just raise the hand. And my question is this: if I understood correctly, what is surprising is that in this second wave of pandemic, then perhaps even if we will now fall in the third wave or pandemic, we could verify a decrease in practicing sport among kids. And this is quite surprising, I have to say. So I wonder if you consider the frailty, as you said, of the sports organization, one of the causes of this these difficulties of youth to enter in to practice the sport. So perhaps you think that because the system is not strong enough to give chances to kids. Is this what you want to channel to us?
This is one of the ideas that, for us, at least in Portugal, is very clear. The system was much affected. You know, the system, at least our, and probably because I think that you are Italian, probably your system also. I know a bit, and some sport system from the south are basically supported by volunteer work, and this volunteer work is as defined is not being paid, and because of this, most of these organizations were supported by the revenues that were inputted by institutional organizations, or by the activities for the revenues that come directly from the activities. These last 2 years, these last 2 seasons of sport, they did not have revenues. This means that most of the people that are working there were not at the capacity to keep doing the job and preparing the system for the recovery and for the first moment that we lived during this first spring of 2021. So I think all over Europe, most of the countries did not have the capacity to respond energetically to the needs of the kids, in terms not only on the sports sector, but also in terms of physical education. Of course, some of the countries have increased lately. In May, they start the physical education classes with lots of limitations, with masks, with people not playing games together. So there was a huge and dramatic changes in the content of the offer and in the quantity of the offer. So basically, what we need to do under these circumstances is to give again capacity for the stakeholders in order to get their momentum again, to create offer and to open this possibility. Unfortunately, Portugal is living or preparing to live his fifth wave. So we don't know. As you know, Austria is already confined. Germany has already quarantined with Belgium. Belgium, I was there last week, had already problems, and you see on the streets people fighting because they don't want to, they want to resist. So all of these tumultuous situation is impacting on the sports sector, and we are still not calm enough and ready to develop the work that we need to do. So I think that all of us inside of our organizations need, in fact, to create the enough conditions in order to calmly prepare what we need to develop in the upcoming months and years, which is giving opportunity for people to make physical activity together, to make sport, respecting, of course, the rules, but again, using the sport as a tool for integration, for the transmitting of the social model values of the European Union. This is clear for me. Clear.
Thank you very much, Paulo. I think you are completely right in the sense that the loss of recreational sport or physical activities and some, it's really lost in terms of educational, pedagogical impact on youth. This, beside the physical, as you said, the physical impact, and beside the change in lifestyle with this increased consumption of TV and other devices. So completely share with you this opinion. And what I think is quite troubling is that we expected, as I said, to be out of the pandemic. This was the hope, at least. And now I think the future is much more fuzzy than it was. So we really don't know what will happen in the future and how long we will cope. I heard something about the forecasts of scientists, some at least. They said that probably we'll have to cope with the pandemic in one another for the next 5 years. I hope that.
But Rafael, if you mind, I would like just to add one phrase to what you're saying. I think that we need also, in addition, to prepare ourselves for the impact of the digital transformation that we are living in the upcoming perspective. Because as you know, I think that you like for sure, and me, we are more old than some of the people that are here, but we live the moment of the ABBA, and you know that in London they are building a facility to transmit a concert hall of ABBA with avatar, without anyone of ABBA being there.
Yeah.
So this is something that is already happening, and we need also to identify in the upcoming months, years, the possibility of technology give us opportunities of digital technology to be with kids in a technological perspective and using technology to achieve what we want to achieve. This is another conversation, but I think you should, it's another big conversation,
yes,
but you should put on the agenda.
I would just like to comment on this. As you know, probably 50 or 60% of those who have experienced COVID have long-term impact, what they call the long COVID. So they recover, not completely, and they have to deal with COVID for, I think socially will not be completely different. I mean, even socially, we have to expect a long COVID, a long impact on society and on COVID. So, and for sure, we have to find strategies to overcome what has the pandemic has changed in our life. And we started today speaking from sport, and this will be exactly the topic on the next roundtable. But because we took 5 minutes more, 6 minutes more, I think we are allowed to have our coffee break and to restart, to reconnect at 11:36. Eckhart Müller-Bachmann will take my role in chairing the roundtable. That will be introduced by Stephanie Dahl, that I see already on the screen. So thank you for being with us. So have a nice coffee break. See you in 10 minutes.
Sorry, we have a hand raised. Goran, can you wait afterwards, or you want to ask now?
Sorry, I didn't realize it. Sorry, Goran, I didn't realize, because you are not in my screen. Oh my
I think it's better if it's now, because Mr. Paulo Rocha will have to leave for another meeting.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Goran?
So next time for Goran. Have a good, nice
Paulo,
Thank you.
Bye.
just a question. I mean, we are dealing with a huge problem, we know. For example, I can give you just information that we were trying to implement another European project, which has something to do with active learning. So implementing more physical activity into learning in the schools, it's impossible to start. In Slovenia, for example, the kids should wear masks during the sport activity, which is ridiculous. But anyway, how shall we convince the whole bloody elite, political elite in Europe, that this is necessary, that the sport has to go on, because we will have really long, like Rafaela said, long-term social effects of COVID, which might be disastrous for next generations. Before we switch to digital era, that sport will be practiced online. And, you know, the sport games will be practiced online. It will still take time. But what is to do now? Not to destroy the whole generation of youngsters.
Goran, very briefly. You are now having the presidency of the European Union. We had the presidency previously. Me particularly, I was deeply involved because I was one of the responsibles of the Portuguese presidency in the area of sport, and I have been working with the Slovenian authorities under this presidency. And I can tell you that the Slovenian presidency is deeply concerned with this situation. We are working with them, and in the next week, we are going to have another minister meeting in Brussels, where we are going to at least let's say, support the lifelong recommendation, lifelong physical activity recommendation that we were able to develop under the Slovenian presidency. So the idea is very simple, Goran. We need now, in the upcoming years, from this year to 26, to put all our energy in the projects that you are saying, because in the next February, the Erasmus Plus will open again the opportunity for applications. And in the upcoming 5 years, there will be a huge progressive amount of money that will be put in on sport for us at the local level to implement projects that could, in fact, support another impact of sport in people's life. So I will give you a strong message that the political people are worried. They are making enough efforts in order to do it. And please don't lose your energy. Move on. In the next February, put the project. If you want some partners from Portugal, I can help you on that situation. And for sure, we will find the best way to get the money, get the good money, and put things moving. Okay.
Thank you, Paulo. But first, we have to warn Goran, not call them bloody politician, otherwise they will never subside us. Please, Goran, take. joking.
I'm
only politicians, not bloody, only
I
politicians.
I am writing letters to our Ministry of Education, Sports and Science, and really with strong arguments and everything, but I didn't get any response from the minister. So that's why I was worried. I said, what the heck? I'm doing my best and now losing
I
hope.
know.
Really.
Okay, but let's stop here because we already have taken more than 10 minutes. So now we have to say, see you in 10 minutes, 11:40. So see you later. Thank you very much, Paolo. And we take you for granted. This means that we will come back to you with such a strong proposal that you have to support us. Please, we rely on you.
Well. You will have my support. Don't worry. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye
Keep
bye.
energy and stay active.
Thanks.
Okay, everybody, may I ring the bell? I think we could start. It's 11:41, so it's 1 minute late to the announced 11:40 that Raffaele mentioned. My name is Eckhard Müller-Bachmann. I'm a senior research project manager at the CJD, which is one of the partners in this project. And I am trying to moderate this second or the second half of this conference, this webinar, the first roundtable. We have a slight change just to let you know that Robin Schröder is not going to be the second speaker. He's going to be the third speaker because Nuno Delgado from Portugal, the last speaker in the program of the roundtable, will be the second speaker because he has to leave earlier. So just to inform the other speakers about this. But now we are going to start, as announced in the program, with Ms. Stephanie Dahl. She is a scientific researcher at the University of Münster at the Institute for Sports Science, and she's also a program director of the Research Network on Child and Adolescent Sports in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is, as most of you might know, the biggest federal state in Germany, about 18 million inhabitants. And this network had monitored the pandemic and the consequences of the pandemic to youth sport activities, and has published some recommendations for a better use of youth sports after the pandemic or during the pandemic. I guess Stephanie Dahl will explain this a bit more explicit, and I guess we might also have some parallels to the speech of Paolo Roccia we just heard. I give the floor to Ms. Stephanie Dahl. Thank you very much for joining us and spending your time with us.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation to present our position paper. And I would like to share my screen to show you some of our slides. As you already said, this position paper is of the research association or research network for children and youth sports in North Rhine-Westphalia, and it's about children and youth sports post-corona. And my presentation don't want to go on now. Our research network, the Research Association, it's a network of all institutes of sports science in North Rhine-Westphalia, which are 8 institutes. And we were founded in 2019, so we were quite new research association by the Faculty Association of Sports Science in North Rhine-Westphalia. And there is an office of which I am the managing director. And this office is funded by the State Chancellery of North Rhine-Westphalia. And we set some goals to our research association, which are that we want to cluster the station-wide efforts on research in the area of children's and youth sports. We also want to develop a continuous reporting system about children and youth sports, and also want initiate and also support our own research projects on children and youth sports. And we also would like to promote the dialogue between research and society, especially science, practice, and politics. And short outline for today. First, I would like to show some considerations about the importance of movement, games, and sport for healthy growing up of children and adolescents. I'm sure that I won't tell you something new in this area, but this was the main consideration of our research paper, of our position paper. Then I shortly want to show you some results about impairments of children and adolescents due to the pandemic, which are not our own results, but from other teams in Germany. And then I will go on with the perspective with our recommendations for the area post-corona. So why it is important for children and adolescents to move, to be physically active, playing games and do sports. So it's not only about sports, but also about all kinds of movements and daily activities that are important for the healthy growing up of children and adolescents. And there are several physical, motor, but also psychological and social values, attitudes, skills, and abilities that are important for children and adolescents to grow up and that they can learn and experience in sports. For example, they can improve their self-esteem or develop their self-esteem. Of course, it's also about motor skills and abilities. It's about motivation for sports, joy of movement, which leads to lifelong engagement in physical activity and sport activities. But there are more. It's about identification, belonging to a group. It can increase the self-concept or develop the self-concept. It's also for the creativity of the children and youth, and a lot more, as you can see in here. For example, it's good for the health, but also for the self-efficacy, and it increases the social skills. They can learn a lot about their personality, and the contact with other young people in their community, and they also learn to cooperate. And I added this word from the previous talk. Of course, it's also a meaningful activity for children and the young people. And another potential of the children and youth sports is that it is both important, movement and sports. It's both important for the present experiences that the kids and the adolescents can do. For example, activity and relaxation. They can experience contact and belonging, as I already said. They can experience their body and also a feeling of success. But on the other hand, they learn also a lot through sports for their development, for their adulthood. And these are, for example, motor skills, self-competences, or social skills. So it's both important for their present development, but also for their future. So which impairments have we seen for children and adolescents due to the pandemic? It's indeed similar to those results that we already have seen for the European and Portuguese studies by Paulo Rocha. And here we can see some results from the first lockdown regarding everyday life and media consumption for children in primary school and in secondary school. And what we see here is that the children increased their time to play inside, also a bit outside, but not that much at playing inside, because as you know, it was also forbidden for a certain time to go outside, and only those that for example have had a garden could go outside to play. The same we can see for the older children, but we can also see that the time, so the yellow means the time increases, it's became more frequent. Orange means that it stays the same, and the red color indicates the frequency of this activity became less frequent. And what we can also see that the time to do nothing or hanging around also increases, especially for the children in secondary school. And also, of course, the time for homeschooling increased. And what we already heard, also the time consuming television, sedentary time, playing with the computer or with the smartphone, it increased in both age groups, and especially the older children, the adolescents, they also increased their time on the internet. So what we saw was that the homeschooling increased. They played more, but they also did more nothing and hanged around, and the media consumption also increased. We also saw for movement and sport activity that in organized sport in Germany, before Corona, there was about 26 minutes that the children were active in organized sport activities. And during the first wave, it reduced to non-activity at all. But even in the second wave, when there were again some more things allowed, the time just increased to a few minutes per day that the kids were active. We also saw in the daily activities such as walking or playing, before the lockdown, it's the blue button, that the time for the minutes per day increased for the daily activities in the first lockdown, which is the orange line, but it then decreased during the second lockdown. So as we already heard, first there was an increase in the daily activities, but then in the second lockdown, this time reduced. And we also see here for the media consumption, for the screen time, an increase before the lockdown during the first and the second lockdown. We also see an influence on health and well-being. Here for reduced quality of life of the children. So before Corona, there was about every third out of 10 children that had a reduced quality of life, and here during the pandemic, it increased to 6 or 7 children out of 10. And we also see some increases in the time in psychosomatic disorders, which I don't want to explain any further due to the time, but you see some in some areas there is an increase, for example, here for headache or also nervous attacks or something. And what we also have seen that the children and youth, they were not heard by the politicians. So they had no opportunity to participate and go and follow their interests because they were not heard by the politicians. And this is a sentence from the first lockdown, because they were only seen as pupils and not as the people that want to explore, that want to meet friends, and that had to meet new people and just to grow up. So this was what we also have seen during the pandemic. So to summarize, the importance of physical activity for the growing up of children and adolescents, their development, their social participation, and their health has become clear. It was also clear before, but it became clear again in a particular way. And it's important for their healthy growing up. What we also have seen, what I haven't shown, is that especially those with social disadvantage are affected by the pandemic in education, in their participation, and also in their health situation. And there's also, through all these digitalization processes that we now experienced, it's also an alternate way of dealing with one's body, and also the social lifestyle changes. And this was also evident during the pandemic. So digitalization processes and disembodiment of youth lifestyle has accelerated in this period. So what we recommend for the restart of children and youth sports post-corona are divided in 3 fields. So first of all, to recognize all the things I just told you, how important it is for the children and adolescents to be able to move, to do sports, to be active, and that they become the possibility to experience movement games and sports in regular movement games and sport activities in daycare center for children, in schools, both during lessons, but also in breaks. That we have to have supportive general conditions for movement games in sport clubs and also in the child and youth welfare. Because we also have seen that there have been restrictions and also difficulties that were just due to the conditions. So even if one was allowed, there were other reasons why, for example, the sport activity couldn't take place. And it's also important to open up the communal spaces, playgrounds, schoolyards, sport facilities, especially also for informal physical activities, because as you see in this picture, in Germany and also in other European countries, it was even forbidden to go outside to go to the playground for the children. And as I already said, for those who do not even have a garden, there was non-possibility at all to be active. So we have to avoid this. And we have, for the learning with movement games and sports, it's important that we promote the development of demanding analog and digital physical activity programs for children and young people, for their motor development, for their cognitive activation, and also for their social inclusion. That we have to develop new offers that deal with the physicality, movement, and sport in digital societies, and that we integrate especially those children with a socially disadvantaged background in sport activities in school, but also extra curricular sport activities. And my last slide, it's also important to consider all these aspects in the long term, and therefore it is, in our point of view, important to create a network of stakeholders in the children's and youth sports, from practice, from politics, but also from science, in, for example, a continuous panel of experts, but there we shouldn't forget the children, their parents, and also the young people, that they will become the possibility to participate in the developments. And we also hope that there will be a systematic promotion of research of children and youth sports, for example, with a regular sports-specific funding in Germany, but also European-wide, and also a regular reporting system. And the last point is that we have to develop a strategy to ensure children and youth sports under conditions of a potentially pandemic era. So thank you very much for your attention. The last slide were very fast, but I tried to be not too long in my talk.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. That was actually completely in time as we were calculating. We just agreed internally, without the Italian host being here, being in our internal agreement, that we allow discussions now, because as a second speaker will be Nuno Delgado now after Stephanie, and he will then have to have his questions also after his speech. So I would simply suggest to give some questions to Stephanie. I would like to start with a very simple question about the gender issue. Have you, well, I couldn't see it on the slides because they were quite small, the numbers. Have you found significant gender differences in the effects of the pandemics and in youth sports and women and boys, or girls and boys?
We haven't, for this presentation or for the position paper, we haven't been too much in detail. So I'm sure that there are differences, but I cannot tell them because we haven't prepared them for this position paper, because I think of course we have seen and I also haven't shown these results, the differences for the socially disadvantaged children, and there are results for girls and boys, but I haven't them with me for today. Sorry.
Okay. Any other question? Goran, I see your hand there. Goran?
Yes. I would rather be a little bit provocative again. Stefan, you mentioned that, or you showed the results, the subjective perception of youngsters not being heard by politicians, not being heard by the policies, not being heard by society. Our project is all about preventing radicalization. What do you think how this will affect the youngsters' perception of our society, perceptions of elderly people who left them behind? For example, in Slovenia, police is chasing youngsters playing football because the older people are calling the police that they're gathering. So what is your prediction of long-term effects or in the effects in the future? How can we fulfill your 3 goals that you mentioned?
So I'm not an expert in radicalization, but I think that, of course, if they still are not feeling heard and they don't get the possibility to participate in decisions that do influence their lives, I'm sure that it will influence their ways of future thinking about several kinds of participation, of possibilities, but also maybe to find another way to solve a problem if they are not heard through discussion or through their possibility to participate in a process, that they will look for other ways. But this is just a suggestion, because I'm not an expert in radicalization processes. So we in our research network, it's also not only the pandemic, which was one of the topics that we are now working with, but we are focusing on several other topics as well. So we are not a research network that just focuses on the pandemic as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I see other hands here? No, I don't think so. In case you have any more questions, maybe we can talk about them at the end of this round table. I might have another, but as I know that the Portuguese participant has to leave early, I will give the floor to Nuno Delgado now, who is let me see, he's a champion judoka, won the Olympic medal in judo, the first Olympic medal for Portugal in judo. Let me see, in 2000, as far as I see it here in my notes, in the under 81 category. So I hope this all is correct. And he was also a senior European Championship. So he will give us some insights from the sports perspectives on youth education, I might propose in sports. Nuno, your floor.
Okay.
Let me say, I will give you 10 minutes. If you exceed this, I will try to stop you, okay?
I have my tatami here, so we can do a round fighting if I go too much all the time. But good morning, everyone. Good morning, Eckhart, and thank you so much for this invitation to participate in this roundabout. I would start to say that more relevant than my sports curriculum that Eckhart has just provided, I'm speaking here on behalf of the Portuguese Institute of Sports, because currently my job is to coordinate the European capital of sports in Lisbon City. And during this year, we had the pandemic. Our program was very much changed because of the pandemic situation. And I would like to share both visions: the vision of the city of Lisboa and the primary strategics that we have organized towards looking forward for the future as capital of sports in Europe, and also some small examples of my association. I have a judo association that works with children in many municipalities. So my main message to all of you regarding the field, because here today we had very interesting presentations on the scientific side. This pandemic was a big laboratory for us to analyze situations that probably would never happen in a scientific context, because the pandemic practice the most important things in our lives, our movements, our emotions, and many other necessities of the human being that were practiced during the pandemic. And in the Lisbon Capital Sports, we had a program of different activities we were organizing throughout the year to devise a strategy for the city to become more active, more healthy, and more sustainable. And when the pandemic burst, it was right in the beginning of our opening ceremony, so all the events were canceled. I spoke to the mayor.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nuno, but we can't hear you very well.
Okay. Some problem with the link.
If you can try to speak maybe closer to, I don't know what. The microphone.
It's not very common. I will try to link with another gadget.
Thank you.
Just give 1 second. Just very quickly. I don't know if you can hear me now better. Oh, it's a problem on the connection. Sports. So,
Maybe a bit better if you get closer to your device.
like this?
Yes.
It's better?
Yes.
Better.
So keep going here. So basically, just to shorten the time, I said to the mayor, this is an opportunity. We're not just going to do a sports program with events all over here. That's something that any capital in Europe would do. We had here in Portugal the European Champions League of Football and Web Summits and all of these events. What we will do is we will go directly to the people and devise a strategical program for the city for the next years until 2030, which is the deadline for the ODS, the sustainable goals, and really involve in a municipal program to take people on the street, okay, to provide the EPA, which is health enhancing activities, and add up outdoor. So we started to develop outdoor programs. We have an Erasmus Plus project here in Portugal called Dare You, which is basically using dynamic structures that go all around the city, going to supermarket parking lots, to kindergarten, which the parents are waiting to take kids to school and so forth, and many other facilities to really leave the message that to become a sports city, you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to go to my dojo, you have to be active on the streets, you have to search for your own health, not wait for doctors, and especially with your behavior become more sustainable. And it was quite complex during the first months to explain to the different departments, to the clubs, let's say to the agents of the capital sports, all the people that will execute this plan, what is this concept of being active, healthy, and sustainable. Because every time we talk about sports, we don't talk about movement like our colleague Stephanie just spoke before. There is a big misconception about the idea of physical activity and intentional movement. For us, it was quite an interesting experience to try to educate our community to just go outside, and just be active and feel better, and that way also have more responsible and sustainable behaviors. So talking about children, talking about grown-ups, talking about elderly people, we all need the same, which is to be active, because our brain was meant to put us in motion, to have emotions, emotional contact. This also improves our health. And of course, if we can be solidary to our own neighbors, to our own planet, to our own city, these are the backbones of society right now. The problem is that in Portugal, let's say in Lisboa, I didn't present the numbers, but if anyone is interested, I can send you. The Department of Sports has 0.01% of the budget for the municipality. So those means it's very difficult, even though everybody's shouting out that sports is important, that health is fantastic, that sustainability is great. But if you don't put the means, the means is a budget, it's money, to that strategy, it's impossible to do it. Even in terms of hierarchy, the higher hierarchy in the municipality is the municipality director. I can tell you that in Lisbon, the Department of Education and Sports does not have a municipal director, which gives you the idea how the politicians are trying to push the message that we want sustainable, healthy, active people, but they're not yet putting the means on those subjects that are so important. And also at the European Union, we have Erasmus Plus as the biggest line of support and finance, but it's still very much away from the big departments of Europe, like energy, transportations, and so forth. Many money is going to those lines of support and not enough for our champions in life, which is the citizens. So my message for today, for this community, would be we have to switch the fuel. You know, there is this thing that is coming in, so we can put the water on a small cup. And we're looking at our health, the most important thing that Europeans have right now, because we are not dealing with the same issues like in Africa or in Asia. We're especially dealing with the well-being. And sports, activities, movement with intention should be our biggest concern right now. And our budgeting, our programs, connection with the health departments, with the social security departments, with transportations because of soft transportation in the city, should be really connected with the people from sports, because our main job is to train champions for life. So just to end up, because too much information sometimes is not very efficient, and because the videos speak better than words, I hope that Mariana could put a small link of a video.
Yeah, I will try to share my screen. Just a moment.
And this video is an example of the activities that my judo school has developed during the pandemic times, together with the Minister of Education, because we had some teaching.
Is it appearing?
Just 1 second. Not yet. Mariana.
It's
well, not running, Mariana.
Not running, yeah.
Because it says here that I'm sharing the screen, but it's not appearing.
No problem.
We see it, but it's not running.
I will propose as follow. I will send you the link, and then you can, you know, chilling in your office, see it. But I just finished my presentation, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Nuno. I think this would be more sufficient if you send the link for the video. We keep it here in the chat, and everybody could copy it, and maybe.
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll put here.
Okay, let's just try to describe it with a sentence about a program you developed, or did I get it right?
Yeah, the problem basically was all of online support for families, because during the period of the pandemic, we thought that the most important thing was to put the family physically, emotionally, and also regarding sustainabilities and social skills values. And all of the activities that we developed through the 3 lockdowns in Portugal, there's small examples of those.
Okay. got it. Thank you, Nuno.
I just share the link in the chat.
Yeah. Shall we ask questions here for Nuno? Please, questions. Just one remark from my side, maybe this is very subjective, but the last time I've been in Portugal, and I think even the times before, it came really to my attention. For sure, I've only been to Lisbon and I've only been to Porto, to the main big cities. But my impression was that Portuguese people are so sportive in terms of individualistic sports like jogging and doing exercises outside. So it seemed to me, but this is just a subjective impression, that many people do individualistic sports in terms of, as I said, jogging and exercises, all go outside. And is that a wrong impression, or is it too reduced?
We would like it to be true, but unfortunately is not. In the big cities like Porto and Lisboa, we have a lot of tourists. And a lot, let's say 30% of the population of those cities. And many of them are coming, in their summer times, and they're the ones that are really doing these outdoor sports. Portugal, unfortunately, is in the last place of the index of activity, sports activity average during the week. Because these are cultural backgrounds that we have, although the weather and the conditions of these cities are very good. So this is why we are really focusing on trying to change these habits for people in the city.
Okay.
Good. Sorry, just a very short comment. I'm really enthusiastic about what you said in your program about taking people to the street and not from the street. I find it's really great, and maybe this is also a good answer, a good strategy. I had questions before after Pablo Rocha, but I didn't pose it because time was short. But to this, which is in these conditions that we had, how do we work on the power of groups? Meaning that the only individual sports which are allowed mostly are individual sports. So again, the role of the educational role and the role of strengthening the social skills of sport, I see it as weakened. Yes. And maybe, I don't know if this was at the base of your idea with this program, but maybe taking people and young people to the streets is a good strategy in this.
Yes, thank you for your remark, Alexia. Yes, I don't know if you heard about this philosophy of play streets. There is a philosophy in urban cities, very common in the UK, which is having time to close the streets during the afternoon after work or in the weekend, so people can play sports, can do traditional activities, small carnivals. And because Lisboa and Portugal is the third safest country in the world, we have this opportunity that is very safe to go outdoors. It's very safe to be enjoying the city. But now the habits of people are not to go on the street. The street it looks like some place it's not friendly. Okay, so regarding your idea of how to connect the groups and how to put people, even though they're doing individual activities, how we can connect them, I believe that we have to use the power of sports. And the power of sports is all about friendly competition. everybody likes this. I don't know if you can see it. It's a medical, okay? And the intentional movement that we spoke about with Stephanie is a lot related to this motivation that you have to do something to win something. Maybe if we can start to create, instead of, you know, this jogging competitions like you have to do the marathon, you have to do something. If we start to prize people to do outdoor activity and to create small groups in each street, let's say like a tribe, small tribes, you know, even Paris now for the Olympic Games and Lisboa, Paris, Madrid, Sofia, Glasgow, and Geneva, we created this group to discuss together municipal policies. And the legacy for Paris is the city of 50 minutes, which means that you have to be active within a range of 50 minutes to go to your work, to go to your school, to go to your gym, to go to your rest. Everything you do in the city should be organized between the space of 15-minute walk. So I think this is the future, and the future is to use the city to become more active, more healthy, and more sustainable. The city is yours. The outdoor of the city is yours. Here in Portugal, we have a lot of dogs doing poo-poo on the streets. We have a lot of issues in the street because people don't feel that that part of the street is theirs. You know, and you can be outdoor and use it. And maybe the pandemic has helped us to understand that these are the real values that we need for ourselves, not to have a nice cell phone to have a lot of money, because at the end of the day, if you don't move, you're not healthy, you won't be here.
Okay, let me please interrupt here because watching the clock, I think we can't be unfair to the other speakers simply because it's only that we have 34 minutes or 35 minutes more to go, and we have 3 more speakers here. So sorry to interrupt here, but if you have questions to Nuno, I think you can also further questions, you can also send them in the chat, and Mariana will transport them to Nuno if he has to leave now. So he won't get lost, I think, for the audience. And my very big excuses to the other speakers who were replaced for in the order replaced now on Nuno. So it's actually Robin Schröder, having been the second speaker, going to be in charge now. I think the idea of street sport is somehow supported by his project, by his programs he's developed at his company called Rheinflanke GmbH, and I think it's a service provider, social service provider, and dealing a lot with street soccer issues, also dealing with street soccer and in connection to respect, mutual respect, to social cohesion, and simply to bring people together, as far as I understood. And also Robin Schröder is very experienced in European project, and I guess his project he is talking about is also financed by the European Union or co-financed. I give the floor to Robin Schröder, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. First question, can you hear me well?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, very good. That's a good start. Yeah, all that you said, Eckhart was already correct, and I'm going to try to draw a bit of a more detailed picture of it in a hopefully, or I guess, a short presentation. It's more focused on our practical work, less than on the specificities of the COVID situation or anything. So I would suggest that if there are any questions from your side, then we do that after the presentation. I'm happy to talk about that too. Yeah. So first of all, my name is Robin. I work for Einflanke for like 5 years already as a social worker or sports social worker, I would say. That's one part, and the other part is the coordination of our international projects and networks. So I'll be happy to be in touch after the presentation too. So I'll try to share my screen, see how that goes.
Ich glaube, das in der Fuß, ja, genau so.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'll start with a brief overview on our organization called Rheinflanke, talk about the methods we use, and then talk about a specific project on radicalization prevention. So basically our work can be divided into youth work, school work, and educational work, with youth work being work that we do in youth centers, where young people can come and go whenever they want, or as mobile youth work, where we go to the streets, basically go to the spaces of the young people. And then we also work with and in schools, where we provide sports activities and social learning activities. Mostly we go to the schools, but we also have facilities where schools can come to. And then we have educational work as a very broad term that includes, for example, also training programs for teachers and multipliers, or areas like job coaching and vocational trainings. So as an organization, we work we're based in the Rhineland area in Cologne, and we have different locations around that area, which you see on the right of this slide. And then we also have one office and a few activities in Berlin. All in all, we have about 100 staff, just to give you an idea of the dimensions. So now, sport is like, even though we consider ourselves being part of the social sector and doing social work, sport is a really key component of our work, and basically is present in all our projects, but in different fashions or with different intentions. So the most basic, the most low threshold way of using sport is to build relationships to young people, which is key in any type of social work, I would say, and therefore I have like a relationship of trust to people. And then we also have it, or that's still also really low threshold, I would say, is that we use it as an informal learning space, but not very intentional. So whatever comes up can be discussed. And then we have we have different methods that are more structured. One of them is Football 3. I'm gonna talk about that on the next two slides. We have other competence or sport-based competence trainings, and also team building, cooperation training, and violence prevention. These methods, they require more closed setting, I would say, meaning that it requires more or less fixed groups, because it can be sometimes maybe a bit uncomfortable for the participants. So it's important that they don't leave the group, and therefore don't have this learning moment. So I'm going to talk about Football 3 now. One, because it's my expertise compared to the other methods that we use, and two, because I think it's one way of also addressing radicalization tendencies, Why? I hope I'll be able to explain that now. But first of all, just to give you an idea of what Football 3 is, it's called Football 3 because it's part of or it's mainly formed by 3 halves. So the first half, so to say, is a discussion of both teams, and then they play a match, and then they have another discussion. In the first discussion, they agree on rules that they make themselves, and then they try to apply these rules. And in the third half, in the other discussion, they reflect on these rules, and based on these reflections, they discuss or they award each other a certain amount of fair play points, which then also decide on who is going to win or lose. Maybe 2 or 3 more important points on Football 3. I wrote here history, just to give you like a background. It's from, or it has been developed in Colombia, and then, institutionalized in a network called Street Football World, which is based in Berlin and which has promoted the method globally. And then on a pedagogical level, it's key that there are no referees, but rather mediators who support the teams to solve the conflicts that arise themselves, but not to take decisions as a referee would do. Right. And then the question of how we at Rheinflanke use Football 3. It can be on different levels. Youth work here, I wrote in brackets. So that would be the youth centers, the mobile youth work, also football club, where people can come and go whenever they want. And as I said earlier, it's well, Football 3 is about talking. So it's not always, well, it ends up being fun, I would say, and that everybody has a good time. But at first sight, so to say, people think, this is only talking, so I don't want to do this. And so that's why it's not always possible to do it in youth work or in open youth work. On the contrary, it's very possible in schools or in an extracurricular learning space that we run. It's seen on the photo, it's like a place with several soccer pitches. And then tournaments on all levels, internal, local, and also European level are possible. And when we run that on a regular basis, where people come and they know it's Football 3, and so it's okay for everyone. And then obviously we integrate this method into projects. For example, a project on radicalization prevention, which I'm gonna present in a minute. For us, the focus of this method of Football 3 is self-determination, because the players they form the game themselves by creating their own rules. It's usually very inclusive, because people who don't who are not involved in football usually so much, or who have any concerns of playing, they can say that, can raise their concerns, and then the group can find solutions. It's self-reflective, or promotes self-reflection in the third half, where people think about what actually happened on the pitch. We usually have big components of respectful communication, or at least this is a topic, as communication is not always respectful when playing football, so we can have that discussion. And then players also have to take joint decisions on the pitch, because there's no referee who decides for themselves. So a project that we've done in the past and Football 3 was one part of it, but there were many more parts. It consisted mainly of 4 parts. So sport as a preparation phase, as an icebreaker, and to have team building elements. Then based on that, we had an input of like on radicalization, particularly Islamism. It was run by a partner called the Liberal Islamic Association. And to process this input, we had by another partner music and theater activities. And then as a closure, so to say, we had another sports event to like let the people go feeling well after this kind of hard and challenging topic. For us, this project was kind of unique because it combines different methods of youth work and offers a transferable framework that can be transferred to different topics and methodologies. So this is my last slide. It contains resources on Football 3 and the radicalization prevention project called Spiel dich frei. I can share these links also in the chat, and I can also share my presentation if that's possible. Just one note on Football 3, tomorrow there's a webinar on an application that we developed in another EU-funded project. So if you're interested, please let me know. I can also share the brochure for it. So for now, I'd say thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Robin. This is perfect timing, unbelievable, really, like a computer. Thank you very much. Yes, I was just about to announce a workshop tomorrow. I guess it gives insights into the Football 3 methods idea, and so I will join this. It's choosable. It's tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. I think 10:30 to 12 or 2:30 to 4, as far as I remember.
Yeah, I'll double check, but it was something like that.
Yeah, okay. So if
10 a.m. or 3 p.m.
Okay. If you're interested, you can join there. It's for free and it's easy access and so on and so on. I guess it's in English as well, right?
It's in different European languages.
Ah, different. Yeah.
So,
okay.
And you can join the breakout room that you want.
Okay. And the project is still running, just to understand from...
It's the final multiplier meeting of the project. So it's until the end of the year. And we've now developed an app to get started on Football 3 and like curricula for in-person training.
And you get the participants during the corona waves or before or in between, or how did you manage that?
I mean, I can only answer that from our organizational perspective. So the schools, obviously, we're dependent on what the schools are allowed to do. And the open youth work, we had lockdowns in Germany, pretty long ones, and there we switched to digital activities. Okay. But it wasn't possible to involve so many people, so we were like in my youth center, we were happy if we could engage regularly with like 15 people, just to let them know we're still there. And then but our experience was that after the lockdown, everybody was like, it was many more people than before. So the kids are craving for it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Other questions, please. In case there are none, I would simply continue also again, looking at the time, continue with Manuela, the next speaker, Manuela Kifera. I hope I spell this correctly, excuse me if not. She's trained at the National Dance Academy in Rome, and currently collaborates with different associations, with cultural associations and sport associations.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you perfectly. Manuela, it's a bit unfair, but may I just say that please try to stick to 10 minutes. Because
yes,
we're
I
already
will be
late.
brief. Yes.
Yeah, I will stop you after 11, okay?
Okay, it's okay. So I'm very happy to be here to share my experience. I'm here as a dance teacher, and I think it is very, very important as this project does to work for a greater awareness of educators on the strategic role they play in preventing radicalization and violent behavior. So I will speak about my personal experience. And I think that if sport can be considered a very good place to observe the dynamics affecting young people at risk of the radicalization, I found that especially in dance, this possibility grows exponentially, because dance is in many ways similar in sports, and at the same time is something different. And I would like now to emphasize this idea so that is the possibility to be something and something else at the same moment. And but I'm letting now go it and come back later. So I said dance is in many ways similar to sport. It's a sport in practice because it requires rigorous athletic and technical preparation, physical endurance. It shares many values with sport, such as teamwork or best company work, cooperation, discipline, but it is something else because it is an artistic practice, and it is based on the expressiveness, aesthetics, beauty, and dance enters into direct relationship with the totality of the human being. So the practice of dance leads to digging deeply into the soul, working on interpretation and emotionality. So this, in my experience, has been fundamental in my experience as a teacher, to recognize that in order to teach dance practice or a ballet practice, I had to be prepared not only on the specific aspects of the subject, but also on other skills as psychology, pedagogy, the ability to structure and organize didactic paths, and also it is important to develop an empathic sensitivity towards others, the ability and the desire to listen, and knowing, for example, how to adapt my program to how the student feels that they learning, so to insert a work on emotions in teaching. And so the first thing in my experience is creating the right learning atmosphere for my students, knowing how to enter in relationship with the other. And this is a key word of my methodology. The COVID experience reminded me how important is to work on these relationships, about this system of relationships. So my relationship with my students, relationship between one student and another, relationship of the group with the work itself. So the COVID experience reminded the powerful social value of dance, or in general, of sport, of all, I think, of all bodily practice. For example, I will tell you an example of a project, a little project with my students. In the first lockdown, I kept appointments on Zoom to continue our work. And there I really noticed how happy were the students to meet, talk, and discuss about the different ways, the different experiences of staying at home. So taking note of this need of the class, I proposed a little project of video choreography, which started from the postures they most often assumed during the quarantine at home. So each student proposed really different movement and thought his own choreography to the rest of the class. And the others proposed modifications, small changes, and together we went towards a final choreographic score. So I'm telling you about this experience because it's an example of how, I think, of how the teaching a bodily practice can be a way to work on relationships, so on the concept of society. Because from this experience, for example, we learned that each of us can give different answers to the same event. So we try to cross the state of the other's body and to enter in same relationship with it. So we learned the valuing and giving space to one subjectivity, and at the same time knowing how to negotiate personal needs with those of the group, of our small community in this case. And I can imagine that this logic of crossing, of passing through one's other experience could be a good practice to replace the logic of moving towards extreme points, towards radical position or solutions, which is typical of phenomena of radicalization. So going to conclude, I would like to return on the concept of being something and something else at the same time, and I will borrow for this the phenomenological lesson of Merleau-Ponty, a French philosopher of the last century. So I'm talking about the idea that the body allows both interaction with other bodies and at the same time something intimately perceived and experienced. So it is a body that interacts continuously. It is never something or something other total different, but it is always different things together in the same time, at the same place. So I want to leave you with this idea, this suggestion that the body can be a really a concrete metaphor of our being in the world. So we can learn from this experience. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Manuela. Any questions, please?
I'm just going to start talking. It's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manuela. I also think that dancing and arts is really a really good thing for young people, especially us. We mostly do football, and we know that obviously we meet many other people, even though we reach a lot of people too. But I also always feel like that arts, it might even be a more deeper experience for young people. Specific question. You talked about doing it on online as well during lockdown. What was your experience? How the people participated? Because ours was that I was surprised how few people participated, because I thought, yeah, you know, they are all into digital devices and everything, and compared to that, it was only few people. How was your experience about it?
It has been a very difficult experience because I think it's not possible working with dance in an online platform, because dance is the bodily presence in the same space. So we didn't work about dance technical aspect, but it has been important, as I said, for relationships of the group. So just for a brief period, so I worked just for the first and the second month of quarantine, and not for so much time. And I found that creative project as this choreographical moment, so working about expressive creativity, helped students to be together and to feel together in a difficult moment.
Cool.
With all limits of the situation.
Okay, thank you again, Manuela. It's already 1, and I think some people left already, and some people might get hungry. It's our fault that we are already late, but we won't miss our last speaker from Slovenia, and he's graduated from the Faculty of Sport and Master of Judo, so he's bringing also perspective on the physical experience, so to say, but from a sports perspective. He has also 20 years of experience in mixed martial arts or martial arts, working with children and adults. I give the floor to Simon Michelina.
Greetings to everyone. My name is Simon, and I come from beautiful city of Maribor, Slovenia. I have been taking in sport all my life. As a young
Simon, sorry, can you also get a bit closer to the microphone?
Okay.
A bit louder, maybe.
Okay. I have been taking part in sport all my life. It's okay now?
Yeah, perfect.
As a young man, I do judo, of which I'm a master. Led me to the Faculty of Sport, where I also graduated and became a professor of physical education. Lately, I have spent less time on the judo mat and more gaining experience as an employee of the Office of Sport in Maribor. In this work, I have the opportunity to observe the work of clubs and athletes I meet daily, especially coaches of clubs and presidents. Right at the beginning, let me say that For me, movement is a circular activity since it balances a young person's energy and therefore has a significant impacts on the development and prevents a young person from tuning to negative thinking or extremism. This is especially true in the case of contact martial arts. It seems that excess of energy in the adolescent, which can be expressed as anger, sadness, or heart, can turn a life of adolescents around in a positive or a negative direction. Sports, especially martial arts, can and do successfully extinguish or take away this inner tension. If you are asking me what to do with youth who cannot quit or constructively direct this internal change, I have to take you with me on a trip to the beginning of my life. I had an exciting childhood. Some with me some extraordinary experience. As a boy, I had the opportunity to see and recognize which boys or girls succumbed to various harmful subcultures, bullying, or some cases even fell into the extreme behaviors that can lead to violence or crime. For me, the art of judo has been a great guide. It seems to me that the skills keep me on the safe side of the thin red line, which we as a boy have sometimes crossed. Yet we always returned quickly to the safe side. It has also been proven that contact sports in childhood, falling on the ground, and children's wrestling positively affects children's development. If I had the option, I would introduce martial arts in school, or even as a compulsory class in the childhood school days. Martial arts, especially judo, help to introduce the rules and boundaries into the life of children and adolescents, which we almost adhere to throughout our lives, if we want to consist successfully in a healthy society. Yes, I mean it. If I had the power, I would bring contact sports into the children's every day. Here I am taking about introducing martial arts in school. I think this is one of the key to the development of much less radical personalities. Let me describe why. In my options, a radical is a person who does not know the psychical pain, what the psychical pain really is. In contact sports, you quickly learn that it is hard to it can hurt to you. When we practice contact sports, we start to have I realized that pain hurts, and a person is less inclined to harm others. Let me say this in another way. I honestly believe that many young people would be more developed and balanced if they practice contact sport as a basis. And I'm almost certain that this would achieve a lower rate of violence and extremism in individuals in the long run. Adolescents start going adolescents start going out to clubs when they are already full of pain. Emotions such as anger, hurt, loneliness, exclusion. But at the time, it is often too late. As a consequence, some start using it for harm actions, which hurts themselves and others. Almost other things. I found it youth school myself, which has had about 20 members a year. Well, this group is still alive and well done, but I handed it over to someone else. In this club, my theory mentioned about is still becoming confirmed daily. I'm delighted about that. It seems to me that I have done an excellent job there. It seems we are living in very radical time. Some would call it Corona time, a time of extremes, a time which way inhibit movement or least restricts it a little. It locks children and adolescents in apartments and separated or isolated them. As far I can keep track, many gyms are closed. It is almost practically impossible to work out or train. Given all my experience as a professor of sport, considering what has been said, if we take honest look at the present time, I don't know, I do not believe we are doing a good job with adolescents. I will try to turn the topic already mentioned upside down. A professor of physical education, as a professor of physical education, I have always advocated moments and recommended that benefits or physical contact brings. I can also ask to look at the other side of the problem. What will the situation we are in at the moment bring? If a teenager will spend all his time on the phone playing games, browsing Instagram or Facebook, and will only feel physical pain occasionally, how can he even know it exists? Don't you think that is the key? Children and teenagers are killing each other in virtual games, and some even believe this is how real life looks. But in fact, it is not. It seems to me that in the future, this can become even a greater problem. I think we should think deeply about this and prepare ourselves for the future. I also believe that your work, that is preventing extremism is very significant. We all know that right now there is less and less movement for us, right? After thinking to my sport friends, we all agree that this break in training in the Corona time caused a great regression in technique and self-back in mobility. Only the hardworking ones will be able to fix this, and even from them, it will take them another year or so to get to the same level they were before. Some never will be able to make it. Also, their mindset has profoundly changed during this time. As I'm not an expert, I cannot talk about it in deep, but I can guess it is learning more towards nervosism, the calm.
Simon.
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
May I ask you to come to an end because the time is already gone?
Yeah, I have just 3 minutes.
Okay.
Because as we can see at home, fewer and fewer children are practicing contact sports, but perhaps today, if may happens, someone will hear me and they might introduce contact sports into school. Martial arts, one of the few activities where we can acquire a feeling for a few of a fellow human being, for their or our pain, which is also a teacher. As a coach, I have met many very difficult children, and I can tell you that the Slovenian proverb 100 people, 100 wonders is correct. But I can so ensure that that I was able to observe how the children who gave up training with me also change and become calmer, and as a result, their parents were also satisfied and happy. And okay. My final message for today is that I wish all countries would reach in the influence of sport, especially martial arts, has on extremism and radicalism or violence, and show a great commitment to sport, especially for children. simply because we are aware that this will change the adults. They will one day become and reduce the change of disasters which these injuries adolescents may commit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, and excuse me again for being so rude and interrupting you, but you know the time is already gone. And
yes, I'm not so good in English. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Any questions, please? Okay, I think everybody's a bit tired or hungry, or there are no questions. I can announce that we, or the colleagues from Italy, have posted in the chat that there are evaluation questionnaires. There's a link for the evaluation for this meeting. Will you continue, Alessia, about this?
Yes, please, if you can take just 2 minutes of your time, or maybe if you can't do it right now, if you can download the link and you can do it afterwards, but please do it because we really need it for the European Commission, which, as you know, is financing our project and our seminars. Thank you, Eckhart. We apologize for being late, but I think it was really very interesting. I really appreciated the interventions from everybody, from all speakers. So I would like, on behalf of PRS and the whole project of Saison, to thank really all of you participants and speakers of the roundtable, Paulo Rocha, and I hope that we will have the opportunity to go forward and meet maybe in person, who knows, in some future. And yes, I just want to highlight 2 or 3, it's just 1 minute, the main, let's say, findings that we have from this seminar, which is the long-term social effects of the pandemic. We will have to learn to live with these long social effects of the pandemic, and which are the effects of this in sports and youth sports. Okay. One other topic emerging is the importance to involve and engage many actors at local level. So we had the example of football free with schools, for instance, the example of Nuno with the outdoor programs, where it is key to involve municipalities and local authorities, and so on. We had many practices, which each of them, the football free and the outdoor program, and also what Manuela Cifera was talking about, each of them provided a different strategy to cope with the COVID effects on young people. Finally, yes, the importance of sports. Sports are definitely can be a protective factor, especially for young people, and they should be supported, which means economic support, financial support, and funding from national authorities and from the European Commission or whatever. So thank you again, everybody, and hope to see you soon on some other occasions. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye bye.